So, did you know that the number one thing that's keeping a lot of podcasters from launching their show, it's not the lack of equipment because a lot of people will go out and purchase their equipment. It's not the lack of a bad audio. A lot of people have, once they purchase their equipment, they have a pretty good audio. I know I did when I first launched my podcast. It isn't even the lack of ideas. We have a lot of ideas always running in our head, right? Always. Just all of those downloads. And so it's not any of those things. It is actually the paralyzing fear that the episode is not perfect, that it's not perfect. It's not ready. Maybe you even recorded your episode already, but you think, okay, it's not ready because it's not perfect. It's not perfect. That's what's in your head, right? So if you're currently sitting on the recorded episodes, maybe you have a few already recorded, but you're afraid to hit that publish button, then grab your notebook because this episode is exactly what you need to hear today. Uh, All right, so welcome to another episode of the Organizedpreneur Podcast. I am your host, Aldreama Harper, operations mentor and fractional COO and efficiency architect. I help service based podcasters eliminate the manual background admin work and cut the episode production time by 50% so that you can scale your presence, your media presence, and your business without burning out. So recently, I hosted a private Q&A for some podcasters, and it was inspired by an event that I had, a virtual event that I had. And when people register for the event, they submit questions. And so I decided that I would have a private Q&A to answer some questions. Okay, to answer those questions that they had submitted. And so it was really an incredible group of women in the room, a couple of women that I was able to um, create I believe, a safe environment for them to express their concerns and their questions. We even had hot seat coaching. Um, and one of them confessed something that I know that so many of you are secretly dealing with, but you're not um, saying anything. In fact, I know this because I've talked to many women who go through this. They want it to be perfect, and that's what she admitted. She confessed that that's what she was dealing with. That perfectionism. She had 3 full episodes already recorded. They were already edited, but what she was really dealing with and thinking in her mind that and terrified about was that they're not perfect. So she was terrified to launch them based on that. So she was delaying, procrastinating, and keeping her voice locked in a digital vault. And honestly, my heart went out to her because I've been there. I've been there. I've Now, when I first launched my podcast, I just launched it, but without knowing what I was doing. However, however, a lot of times I would get stuck in that perfectionism, wanting things to be perfect. So it wasn't that I would go ahead and hit the publish button. I do the start and stop and start and stop and record over and over and over until I think it's I want it to be perfect. And so it takes a lot more time for it to get out there. So that was my struggle. It wasn't that I was sitting on the episodes. It was I was I was going over in my head and going over and over and over and recording over and over and over until I was like, okay, this is not ready to go yet, right? So that's why my heart goes out to those of you who are either you have your episodes just kind of sitting there in that digital vault, or you're going over things in your head, wanting it to be perfect. And guess what happens? It's never going to be perfect. Never, ever going to be perfect. We want it to sound like we have a massive studio production, a massive studio production team you know, that's there. And we want it to be like that right out the gate. That was part of my problem. Now, I will tell you this, my first podcast, Organize Your Enterprise, I used a different platform. And that platform I actually used was Spreaker because it had a lot of bells and whistles. And so I could sit there and pretend like I had this massive audience, this massive studio production team. I would, click on the little buttons that would, with the applause, have the applause button. It had all, and it still does. It's a great platform, by the way, if you are not familiar with it. But, you can make it feel like you are in this studio where you just got all the bells and whistles, right? And you can do that right out of the gate. But I would encourage you to not overthink it. Okay? Because when I started that podcast years ago, back in 2013, it was a different type of culture then. The culture that we're in now, they want authenticity. They want you to, mess up and just be real and raw, right? And so in other words, it just doesn't have to be perfect. So I submit to you to go ahead and release those episodes if you have them sitting in the digital vault. Stop overthinking it if you want it to be perfect, okay? So let's just have a real reality check here. Perfectionism is just a bottleneck in disguise. Your first episode will not be your best episode, and honestly, it shouldn't be. Even with me starting that podcast back in 2013, it was not my best episode. So just stop it, okay? Because it's not going to be, and it shouldn't be. And as I think about my podcasting journey, I have over 600 episodes of across three different shows that I've launched. And you've heard me mention this before. The first podcast, which I just mentioned, it has 14 episodes. That includes a trailer. The second podcast was with my business partner. We have 400 episodes. This particular podcast has over 200 episodes. So over three different shows. And if I went back to my first attempts years ago, I promise you, can I say I promise you again? I promise you, they were not perfect, but it was practice, right? I didn't have the confidence, but when you practice, there's a saying that says, practice makes perfect, but practice doesn't make perfect, right? Practice makes you prepared. Okay. And so the hard truth is that you cannot improve in a vacuum. You cannot edit empty space. You have to launch the asset so you can start gathering data. And when you hit that publish button, you start to build an audience, you start to build confidence, you start to build momentum, and you start hearing the questions that they're asking as you begin to refine your voice. Right? And when you choose obsession over perfection, you stop being the CEO of your business and your podcast, and you accidentally become the exhausted volunteer assistant for your own show. And nobody wants to do that, right? At least not long term. It's okay when you first start, but not long term. You don't want to spend endless hours tweaking audio, cutting out every single breath, every everything that you think is not going to make this thing perfect, and and agonizing over your script, and instead of making an impact. Done is always better than perfect, because done serves your audience and perfect serves your ego. Let that sink in, right? The people you are called to serve, the people who need your specific expertise, your lived experience, and your mentorship, they don't care if you stumble over one word in a few moments, in a few minutes. What they care about is the transformation that you provide. So here's your homework for today. If you have an episode that you're sitting on, if you have episodes that you're sitting on that's in your digital vault, your goal for this week is to go ahead and hit the publish button and stop hiding behind your voice. Get it out there. Get it out there. You have people that's waiting to be impacted by the transformation that you have for them. You need to get out there and serve them, right? So, if you're tired of being the bottleneck in your own media pipeline, or if you need some accountability to finally get your message out there, then I invite you to a call with me. Just explore the resources that may be available to you that I can make you aware of. Get your time back. That's one of the things that I really want you to do. However, we can talk. You can explore the resources that's out there, that's available to you. It may not even be me, but wherever you are, if you're looking to fill the gap between where you are now and where you're trying to go, if you need someone to help you build an automated system, a brain, so that you can do all things decently and in order, so that you can protect your peace, so that you can hit the publish button now, then I invite you to a call. That information, that link will be in the show notes where you can get on my calendar and we can talk about it. It's not a sales call, it is simply a strategy call where we talk about how I can serve you, if I can serve you. Okay, so that's all I have for you for now. I'll see you next week or on the next episode of the Organizedpreneur podcast. Have an amazing day.